Uh, Welcome everyone back to my channel, and today we're going to be covering how to play Shinobi, a guide I've been meaning to update for some time now, and many of you have been asking for a tutorial on how to play Shinobi. Much of this guide will be covering the basics, however how you use those basics is entirely up to you. First, let's get started with the reflex guard. Shinobi is an assassin, and so he is known for having a very short guard that only lasts for a few seconds. The best way to handle this is to constantly refresh your guard into a proxy direction. That way you aren't left open in one particular direction for too long. This is mostly for if an opponent is off to your side you can't see and you don't want to take the chance of taking a quick attack from. However, if you're just facing one opponent, this will not be much of an issue unless you are fighting Peacekeeper. Renown gaining. For those of you that play Dominion and only Dominion, Shinobi is part of the assassin class, therefore he benefits from fighting in 1v1s, finishing off kills, getting the executions, and going on kill streaks, meaning it is impeccable that you stay alive with Shinobi for as long as you are killing people, if you want to get feats very quickly. Now for the sprinting. Shinobi, like every other character, can sprint. However, if you press the sprint button yet again, he will initiate a super sprint that will consume lots of stamina but also give him a minor speed boost. Many characters that use haste will still be faster than Shinobi, however, the super sprint still is a viable tactic for getting around the map. However, it's not very efficient at chasing many characters, especially if they are other assassins. Shinobi also has a tackle. Upon gaining enough momentum and pressing guard break when closing into your opponent, you will tackle them and then be guaranteed a free double light. Now onto his moveset. Shinobi can do a double light combo. The first light will do 14 damage and the free light will do 10 damage. However, if you choose to go for a non-free light, that will also do 14 damage, totaling for a total of 28 damage or 24 damage. Shinobi also has a heavy light combo, granting him 30 damage plus 10 damage for the free light. However, if you do the non-free light, this will do 30 plus 14 damage. However, I recommend you do the free light instead because it's just much better and you don't risk getting parried. Now, this is also the punish you get off of guard breaking people. The heavy into light. Oh crap. I'll show you what that was in a moment. Just ignore that. And you can also do a heavy into heavy, which will bring them into sickle rain. Upon landing the sickle rain, you will do a light, light, light. And this will give quite a bit of damage. In fact, so much that I can't even go count it before it goes completely off the damage indicators. But it does about 2 bars, and it's pretty powerful. As well as it's also a CC, so if you have a Shigoki or other huge damage dealer come in just as you were doing that, yeah, you can pretty much kill a person with that. This is also the punish you get when your opponent is completely out of stamina. So if I turn on Revenge for me, you throw your opponent to the side, you unlock, and you do it a heavy into heavy. The damage is not reliable because, yeah, they kind of have stamina. I kind of have a damage boost because of Revenge, but that is the max punish. Also, it does about 15 plus 30 damage for a total of 45 damage versus 40 damage if you just did a lock-on heavy and light. Now, another thing to mention is Shinobi's guard break distance is a lot further forward than it is in any other direction. Meaning, if you want to ledge someone, make sure it's kind of in the forward direction. I keep doing that, even though I haven't got to that part yet. We're going to get to that towards the very last. My bad. Next up is Shinobi's Charged Heavy. You do this just by simply holding down your heavy, and you'll be granted charging your chain up. There are 2 levels. One is just the normal one that doesn't have much range and doesn't take that very long to charge up. The second level has the particles on it, and you'll be granted with a much further range. Upon your chain turning blue, this means you are within range of your opponent, and you can therefore be able to throw your chain. Upon doing your charged heavy and landing it, or missing it, if you want to, you will be granted a front roll. Upon doing a front roll, you are given 2 options, actually 3. You are given a kick, which does significant stamina damage, or you can do a heavy, which will be given sickle ring. When this lands, this also, his heavies track very far, so if your opponent only dodges the kick and does not put their guard up in time, they will be hit with this and be brought into sickle rain, which is a very, very strong technique. The front roll kick is not like the other kicks, and you will not be granted a heavy after it lands because it is so slow. So when you do the kick, you will only deal stamina damage or knock them off the cliff. It is literally not useful for any other means, unfortunately. However, a Shinobi can choose to not front roll and just do a second heavy instead. However, his second heavy is feintable for some reason. However, his first one is not. However, you can feint out of charging it up if you so choose to. You may also choose to do a light instead if your opponent is very close when you happen to hit them. Another thing is Shinobi's soft feint to guard break. Upon charging up your chain, you can press guard break midway through and be granted a free range guard break, which will bring you into sickle rain once you do a heavy. So you are granted a free heavy, and you bring into sickle rain. Or, since it is a guard break, you are free to ledge from it. This can also pull across ledges, so you can use it to unaware opponents that are on the other side of the ledge. However, the problems with this is your opponent can counter it. For instance, range guard break, it can be countered. Charged heavy, it can be parried. If the charged heavy is blocked, it will take the effect of superior block and it will stop you right there and it will just bounce off of them. However, to show you what I mean by it can be countered, I'm going to allow the bot to range counter guard break. And it will be knocked on your back, and you'll be given, and they will be given a free punish, which is why you must be careful when using ranged attacks, especially out of the open. It is typical that you have allies to be in the upfront battle and only use ranged attacks for support. And it is a very powerful support method, especially with the ranged guard break, because guard break does not show an external indicator at this time, in case they do add it later on. So, it is very easy to counter with practice, which is why I don't recommend you do this in a duel. And it does have its own problems with it, but that's about it. Next up, we have Double Dash. Shinobi is an assassin, and so therefore has very good dodging mechanics. However, he does have a double dash, which is the act of pressing your dodge twice. You can double dodge in any direction but backwards, in which case that will initiate a roll. However, you can half dodge backwards, which is dodging in a different direction then dodging backwards. Now, another thing to add is there's a technique I'm going to share with you all, which is the smokeless dodge. Now, in order to do this, you must non-directionally press dodge after your first direction. For instance, I'm going to dodge left, and then I'm going to let go of the analog stick before I dodge again. This will initiate a smokeless dodge. This won't confuse bots, but will very much confuse your opponent. Another thing to add is you can actually charge your chain right after double dodging. Now, this can also be used to quad dash. Now, many of you don't know this, but quad dashing is an intended feature, and for a while was actually much easier to do before it got put back to its original state because of problems with another part of Shinobi's moveset. So in order to quad dash, what you need to do is you need to hold heavy just out of your double dash and just double dash again right out of it. For instance, you can double dash out of your charged heavy. So what you need to do is you need to double dash, charge heavy, double dash. Now, that might have seemed pretty slow, but I actually slowed it down for you all just so you can see what was happening. This is what it actually looks like when done correctly. It's pretty difficult to do and does consume a lot of stamina, but can be useful. And you can accidentally end up doing a heavy instead. And you can quad dash basically all of your stamina if you let go of heavy. You have to let go of heavy in between dodges, which is why I end up doing heavies by accident. And it can also drain your stamina pretty significantly. So you have to let go of heavies. Because if you hold it down, it will just not activate the charged heavy right after. So, yeah, you have to let go of heavy. And then keep going. But you can do it really fast if you have a lot of practice. Now, you saw it pretty, you saw it right there, but it was pretty hard to tell. You can do attacks out of your double dash as well. You can double dash light, double dash heavy, and another thing is you can also, if you so choose to, hit heavy feint into guard break. I still have you on guard break, don't I? Yes, I do. So if your opponent does choose to dodge, they will be hit with that guard break. Now, why would your opponent want to dodge? And that is a very simple and easy to answer question. Because of Shinobi's kick. Upon pressing guard break after double dodging, you will be granted a kick. And upon the kick landing, you will be given a free ranged heavy, thus leading into your mix-up that I've talked about before. Now, Shinobi seems to have a lot of recovery for a lot of his moves he's doing. So what would be a simple thing to solve for that? Backflips. Now, a lot of you saw me done this a lot earlier in the tutorial, and so I will cover it here. Upon doing any move other than a ranged heavy or a ranged guard break, Shinobi is given a free recovery move that it allows to give him more space, called the backflip. Upon doing any move that is close range and locked on. So do a light, then you press dodge, and you will be given a backflip. Press heavy, you'll be given a dodge and backflip. Heavy and light, you get a dodge and backflip. Do a kick, dodge backflip. Double dodge kick, backflip. Double dodge heavy, backflip. And so much more. Because of this, oh yeah, and I also forgot, Cigarette. You can also backflip mid-chain. to conserve stamina and also to gain distance from anyone that could be over beside them. Now, a lot of things are kind of cheesy, but also very useful, especially against opponents. Many opponents will be wanting to parry Shinobi. So, what you can do is, after putting some pressure on them with some lights, you could even just whiff a light on purpose. Now, why would you want to whiff a light on purpose? To gain a parry attempt from your enemy. Now, upon missing the heavy, your opponent will have recovery from a missed heavy, obviously. Now, why does that affect Shinobi? Take, for instance, if your opponent does do a heavy, by trying to parry that, they will have enough recovery frames for your ranged guard break to land. And upon doing this, you do a ranged guard break and bring into sickle ring. More or less, you have a failed parry attempt that resulted in the Shinobi getting about 2 bars of damage. Very useful tactic. Instead of doing heavies, you can also do lights and purposefully miss them, backflip, range guard break. Now, a lot of times, this will not be safe. So, because of your opponent's chains will eventually reach you. A good example of this is Centurions, so be careful against Centurions. So, what you want to do is you want to do this, charge up, heavy, roll forward, and so on and so forth. Making a very, very, very powerful counterattacker. Basically, he gains a reaction out of his opponents to better benefit from it. Now, that goes for that. Another thing to mention is Shinobi's counterattacking punishes that are baked into the game. Now, I've showed you counterattacks already, such as the kick and the bait into guard break. But what other things can Shinobi do to counterattack? For that, we must enable the bot to do a light. First, we will go with parry counters. So, upon parrying a heavy, you can do a double light, but that is not recommended. So instead, you want to do a faster light that will result in 29 damage of bleed. Well, the initial attack does 14, but then the rest of the damage is done by bleed, making for a pretty good heavy parry punish. However, upon doing light punishes, you just want to do a heavy and light, and then you can backflip for safety. However, you can also choose to do the Shadow Strike backflip for safety in case you are in a gank or some other instance. Now, upon that's about it for parry punishes. You got the heavy and light, you got the Shadow Strike. That's about it, really. Next up, we have Deflects. Deflects are a very strong point with Shinobi. In fact, one of the strongest attacks that Shinobi has other than range guard break. Now, upon doing a deflect, you'll be granted with 2 options. You'll be granted with teleport light and teleport kick. I will be showing them both to you in that order. So, bot, would you so please? And you will be guaranteed a backflip out of this as well. This will result in a 40 damage punish. Am I correct? 40? 15, 5, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Yeah, 40. 40 damage punish. And that seems like a decent amount for how fast it is. However, there's a greater punish, the deflect kick. Now, I did say, at least I think I said, that upon doing the front roll kick, you are not granted the free heavy because your opponent recovers enough to block it. However, this is different. Upon doing a deflect kick, you switch guard, and you are given the ability to give that free heavy in. And that results in a 50 damage punish. Now, so you have a 40 deflect punish, and you have a 50 deflect punish. However, fine print. If your opponent does switch guard mid you deflecting, you will not be granted the ability to land that. You have to switch your guard before you throw that heavy, as you saw me do. I didn't do it fast enough, but yeah, you have to switch your guard for it to be considered free. And I didn't even kick. I don't even know what's wrong with me. You have to switch your guard. And the problem is, if your opponent switches their guard mid your deflect, you kind of have to account for that. And it will not be granted free. So, take that as you will. It's basically the fine print. It's not very, yeah, it's not very consistent. But that is the Deflect punish for Shinobi. And surprisingly, that about covers it. There's not much to this character other than what I've stated, that more or less covers the entirety of his moveset. There's not much else to teach you all, other than the tackle can be feinted, but yeah, it's not really that much of a difference. Wow, I didn't do that right. Yeah, two stamina cost 2 difference. Like, come on. But that's about it. And there's not really any other special way. Shinobi more or less relishes on switching guards. So if people are trying to gank you, switch guards your ranged heavies. Roll forward, do whatever. Backflip, do another ranged heavy, do a ranged guard break, do whatever. This mostly takes practice. And I have to admit, it takes a lot of getting used to. As well as deflecting externally being a thing, it takes a lot of practice. So, that about covers it for Shinobi, other than one minor detail. Now, what feats should you run with Shinobi? That's a somewhat easy and difficult question to answer. Personally, this is personal opinion from here on out. The feats are pretty good across the board, with some minor exceptions. For instance, Kiai seems to be a pretty powerful feat, but does not affect Shinobi in any other way because he does not actually stamina punish you very heavily. Meanwhile, Bounty Hunter seems like a good feat, but is not very useful in the end game. Meanwhile, I would recommend Stealth. Smoke Bomb, powerful feat, however, and a good area control, I guess I could say, but it's very easy to avoid. So I wouldn't recommend that as much as I would recommend some others. Revenge attacks. While it does provide a very good revenge gain, with good revenge gain gear stats, it does not seem worth it. So for beginners, I would recommend revenge attacks. Shooting Stars, on the other hand, Shooting Stars, very good feat, does 20 damage to anyone it hits, and useful for finishing off tricky opponents that are getting on your nerves. Third feat. I would say Nukakubi, which is gains stamina on successful hits, with the minor exception that it's not worth it. What stamina you do gain back from hitting someone successfully, it's not worth it. It's honestly not worth it. Slip Through. Slip Through only works in a couple situations. The Double Dash Light, and the Double Dash Heavy, and the Deflect, and the Deflect Light. These situations are very rare occurring and do not justify Slip Through, because how often they hit does not mean I should waste an entire third feat for just a 15% damage increase when I can just do something like a Double Light, or I could just do the Deflect Kick Heavy, which is not affected by Slip Through, and do the same damage. It's just not worth it. So I recommend Sharpened Blade, useful for wiping out entire teams with bleed, and also will feed your fourth feat, which I recommend. Aerostorm. Why is Aerostorm a feat? No one uses it, and people that do use it never hit anybody with it, so it's not really worth it. Nail Bomb, useful feat, but Shinobi is a roaming character, so Nail Bomb would confine him to a specific area and does not really do much for him in that specific spot. And it's not as good as the next feat, which is Yamuba! Yamuba, my favorite feat. gain health on successful attacks. While it can be compared to Nuka-Kubi, it is not as powerful and works more often than Nuka-Kubi. As well as Sharpened Blade will feed this feat, as well as Shooting Stars. Put Sharpened Blade on and have Yama-Uba at the same time, you can double light an opponent and it will feed you health for a good half a minute, but until the bleed stops, and your opponent will be left with, a self-healing Shinobi because he dealt 2 lights on you. It's very powerful. Now, I could mention, one minor detail I forgot to mention. Shinobi Zone. Don't use it. Unless you're finishing off your opponent. Don't use it. If you want to see why you should not use it, I forgot the Shinobi Zone. How do you forget such a useful, I'm kidding, useless move? Don't use the Shinobi Zone. For the love of God, don't use it. If you're wondering why you should not use it, it's because it's not good. It's not a good move. It's a 500 millisecond attack that is parryable. Is extremely parryable. Here's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So I'm gonna do the zone real quick just to show you guys. The zone is 2 attacks. Well, actually 3 attacks. The first and second attack are about 500 milliseconds, and once the first attack hits, the second attack is free, meaning about 15 damage. However, the second attack, which is the third attack, which is 10 damage, is not guaranteed and therefore is extremely parryable. So only do this if you want to trick your opponent and finish them off quickly, or only in the case that you don't have the shurikens ready. Don't use the zone. Other than that, that about covers it for Shinobi. If you guys did like this tutorial, or you think I missed anything extremely important, please do make sure to comment down below. If you did like the video, please hit that like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. You guys know that already. And if you want to see more videos from me, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see all you dudes in the next video. Bye!